Hello, I'm Liis. I am a student of the Study of Self course, which I've been doing for about a year and a half. And
Right, so the study of self course is something that I'm running. My name is Tio, and we started this group, this course in the towards the end of 2020. So it's been a year and a half now. We are in April 2022, and well, so from your perspective, what is study of self? What brought you into it? What has your experience been like? What is study of self? Just the definition of it for you.
I mean, it's a pretty literal definition, if I'm honest. Yeah, we meet as a group on a weekly basis, and you often give us exercises to do, homework, set us tasks that will help us uncover parts of ourselves or new information about ourselves, and we just discuss our findings on a weekly basis, and it's pretty interesting what comes out of it. So that's what's kept me going so far, is that I have never been bored. Not once.
So in a year and a half, you're still not bored.
I'm still not bored.
And is that normal for you?
No. I only like new things.
So you're a novelty junkie.
100%.
Usually you're a novelty junkie, but with this, you've managed to
This is
stay
the only thing I've ever managed to do for so long.
and keep enjoying it. Unlike a job.
Unlike a job, yeah.
I'm guessing you've had jobs for a longer period of time, but
Yes. I find it so enjoyable and so fascinating that
the difference, I think, is a job you're getting paid, so you keep going back, but you may not be enjoying it. There are some people who enjoy the jobs, but many people don't enjoy the jobs, but they keep going back because they're getting paid, and that is the incentive. But here, you keep coming back even though you are paying for it.
yeah.
So it's pretty much the opposite. Like it's something you want to come back to, not you have to come back to.
Yes. And it just gets more interesting. Like, it's not the same level of interest, it's just more and more fascinating. Every week there's something new. Well, we all learn from each other constantly.
The group dynamic.
Yes. So even if, there'll be some weeks that I don't have much to share or just don't talk much, but that's, because I'm taking so much in from the others, or we're mirroring each other, and I'm just kind of witnessing myself, my behavior in someone else, which is so surreal. So that's what it's pretty addictive. That's what keeps me coming back. It's just fascinating.
Okay, let's explore addiction in a bit, but just to go through the introduction, why I called it study of self is that it is an exploration, an experiential exploration of yourself. It's not purely theoretical. It's not just we are sitting and talking on Zoom and then you go back and you forget everything. It's something you're applying all the time.
Keeps you accountable
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. So it's something applied. It's not just talk. It's something you have to keep applying over and over again and keep going deeper with it. And I think that's what keeps people coming back, is that so not only it's an exploration, it's also that you're transforming, you're changing.
Yes.
Right? So like once you apply the exercise or once you apply this different perspective and you see, oh, like this is what I'm doing in my life. Do I really like doing this? Do I want to continue doing this? Why am I doing this? Once you understand your motivation and you start realizing what you're doing, then when we come back in the group, we are discussing alternatives on what else you can do. And it's not like I'm telling you what to do. It's not like I'm compelling you that you have to live life this way or you have to do this. It's like a discussion, and it's to engage you to come up with alternatives. It's to ask you what can you do differently. So it's for you to use your power to come up with different solutions, different options for your own life.
Yeah, it's a group. Yeah, it's definitely it's an interesting mixture of group and one-on-one work. You know, we go away, we do the exercises by ourselves, but then we come back and share our findings and then talk through our things, our very personal things as a group, and try and come up with, you know, alternatives. We get very creative with it. It's just very interesting, to bring your personal things to the group, work on it as a group, but also individually at the same time. It's unique.
How do you feel about sharing your very personal things with, a lot of them were strangers when the first time you came into the group. These are people you have never seen before in different parts of the world, coming from different cultures, different backgrounds. How was it to because you started sharing pretty soon in the group?
I think that was very surprising for me, how safe I felt to share anything, because I, in particular, really am quite secretive. I don't like to be vulnerable.
Introverted.
I'm very introverted. Yeah, so that took me by surprise. I've mentioned it before. I thought how quickly the group trusted one another with really personal stories. So it was incredibly surprising. But you just feel it's difficult not to share when people are being so open and vulnerable, and I think we take cues from one another, and it's a slow burn as well. Like, we obviously gain more confidence every week.
Yeah.
And
over time, of course, then once you start knowing other people and you start seeing them sharing, like some people have mentioned that the things that they're sharing in the group, they never even shared with their partners or their closest friends or family. It's like,
oh yeah,
you come and share your deepest secrets over here.
Yes.
You had such an experience?
Oh yeah. There's definitely there's a lot that you guys know that I've not told anybody. And I think it's a relief that there is such a place in our lives where we can gather and feel safe, and also there is a distance. It's always different sharing personal stories with your friends and family, because there's always going to be bias and advice usually, and people want to help, and
there's judgments and so like I think one of the experiences what makes people feel safe is that no matter what you share, there is no judgment, or there's not judgment in the typical perspective. It's like the typical way that people judge. It's not a condescending judgment. Judgment is a very flexible word. Like, to judge something is just to analyze it or to qualify it. But the way we judge things is from compassion, is to understand where someone is coming from, to, see what is going on, to see what role are you playing in that. So there is a judgment in that sense, that it's more from a compassionate, understanding point of view, rather than, you are wrong, or what you did is wrong, or you are stupid or something. It's not about condescension. It's like, okay, this is what is happening. This looks like what you may be doing to enable this behavior. This is your role in it, and what can you do to transform it from your side. So again, it's not about controlling other people's behavior. It's not about controlling other people's emotions. Is how can I change from inside? What can I change in my attitude, my behavior, to respond to this situation differently? Because what many people have, right, is that they're trapped in these cycles with other people where you're just repeating the same behavior, and you get caught in this loop of drama. So you have an oppressor, you have a victim, and one person is shouting and the other person is being defensive, or both are shouting, or both are passive aggressive, or whatever, like there are these loops, and the reason the loop keeps going is that both are locked in reacting to each other.
Yeah.
So the moment one person wakes up and realizes, oh, I can do something different, and the moment you do something different, the other person is not, you're not playing the game with them anymore. So if you break the game, the other person doesn't know what to do for some time. It's like, oh, she did something different, so I can also do something different.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the other person doesn't want to wake up and they continue and they go deeper into that behavior, but you start realizing that you are done with that game, and maybe you don't want this person in your life anymore, you don't want this person in that specific behavior or situation. So you can start developing boundaries and say, okay, like right now I don't want to be with this person, I want space, so I will walk away, and later on when they calm down and they're back to normal, we can continue talking. So you come up with all types of possibilities, it's like, it's not, it has to be this way. Sometimes the pattern of behavior could be that you're locked in an argument which you have to win. So the only way to get out of the argument is to prove your point, and the other person wants to prove their point, and this goes on endlessly. So the objective is to win, to be right, and sometimes this can be the loop in which you're locked. But realizing that that too is not needed. You don't need to win every single argument. You don't need to finish every single discussion, because sometimes there is no resolution. Sometimes in that moment you cannot find a resolution. So even in that moment, if you can wake up and say, oh, I realize that we are both trying to win and there is no resolution to be found right now, so I will stop and I will walk away. Realizing that these options exist is already a big thing. And then later you can go deeper and start understanding why you need to win every single argument, why you need to be right. But these are the kinds of patterns of behavior that can be studied and understood and changed with consciousness.
I think that's the biggest takeaway I have, is that I just feel like I have so many options every time I've met with the group. I go into it with, okay, this is my dilemma, it's either this or this, and I come out with all of these various things to try, different perspectives.
So it's like polarized or binary thinking, or you have only two options,
Yeah.
or you have only one option. Like,
Yeah.
I am either in this pole or in this pole.
I can
or
never see out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can only ever see the binary.
Until you have some consciousness. So this is what I call consciousness development, is learning to go to higher perspectives, or like to break out of the narrow-mindedness.
Yeah. That I think is so transformative, and it's so empowering to realize that you thought you were in a tunnel, and actually it's more like, I don't know, an endless maze.
But the tunnel thinking is in your mind. Like, I think this is what we come to realize through doing this work, is that I am the one putting myself in this prison, and literally I can open that prison at any time and see different perspectives. It's
Yeah.
literally that realization that I have the power to go out of this prison now. I don't need to wait for someone to come and save me. I don't need to wait for something to change outside. I can do it now with my power. I think that is the real liberation. This is what I call the freedom of consciousness. Like, that is what a lot of people in this world are not able to experience, because they don't have that model, they don't have that training, that experience.
Yes. Yeah, because every week I have so many examples, like the group, like obviously you discuss a lot of alternatives, but then also, yeah, I get to hear the group, like different people's perspectives. Not even advice, it's not like they're just like, you should do X, Y, and Z.
But just how they think.
Exactly, it's just so fascinating to hear, like, they wouldn't have interpreted that scenario in that way at all. Like they would have thought X, Y, and Z, and it just breaks you out a little bit more, and it's really fun to watch yourself. Like you get more of that detached curiosity because you're the subject matter, and everyone's like, okay, what about this? And that helps you take parts of that with you outside of the group as well. You learn to step away a little bit. So yeah, just examples.
So now that you've been doing this for 1.5 years, right? So I think what is important to clarify is that this is not a magic solution that, you do this exercise and tomorrow you're free. I think, can you speak about how the challenges keep repeating and also what you have learned? Like maybe now sometimes you have awareness. Like what is your current state after practicing all this for 1.5 years?
I think it's difficult to describe. My current state after all this time. I mean, sometimes I have awareness is all I can describe. Sometimes, and that's becoming more frequent. The more I do this, the longer I do this, the more
there
I
are more and
practice
more
it.
moments of consciousness.
Yes, which.
So this is why it is called consciousness development, right? Is that, at least for me and my experience, is that there is this guru style of teaching which is like you just wake up and everything is different and you're fully awake forever and you don't go back to sleep. And it's possible maybe for some people who reach this enlightened state and they're there forever, but I think for most people who are chasing that, what they experience is constant disappointment because they cannot get that. And what we do in this group is development, which means it's progressive over time and over a long period of time. Like even after 1.5 years, it's just the beginning. After me doing this for 7 years, I can say it's not just the beginning, but it's one level up. Like, it's like, okay, now I have definitely more moments of consciousness and I'm much more, like sometimes I'm able to prevent the pattern even before it starts, or sometimes the pattern starts and I can catch it immediately and stop myself. And very rarely, like I may be completely caught in the pattern and it takes me a few days to wake up, but then again, I can wake up and get out of it. But for most people, like, the idea that you can stop a pattern of behavior or change it, or that, like most people don't even know what are their patterns of behavior, and then once they start realizing, it's like they feel powerless to do something about it because they feel like, oh, I am doing this bad behavior and I have to stop immediately. But like the reason we call it development is that it's something that changes over time through work and effort and dedication. It's not, well, I did this for 1 month and I'm still not healed. Like, what the fuck is that? So another note here is that, consciousness is generally associated with peak experiences. People want big things. People want these cosmic revelations and to understand the meaning of life. And another difference in what we do in study of self is that we are focusing on things that are happening in our everyday life, on patterns of behavior that are repeating in our everyday relationships, our everyday engagements at work. It's not about these. You may have big revelations also once in a while, but the key is not about the big revelation and that experience itself. Is how do I bring this giant big revelation into my everyday life? What do I do with this new knowledge, with this new wisdom? How do I apply it into my life today and every day?
And I think that's part of the addictive aspect of this, it's just, I used to really worry about the fact, like, how many years is it going to take before, I'm just awake, that I'll never slip back. And now I like the fact that it is such a journey, that it is, every win is so hard won, every win, and it's not like once you've done it, it's done forever. Like you must always keep awareness in that field. If you want to retain, you have to retain it. Every win is,
I recently was listening to something which I found very interesting. They talk about 4 stages of learning. So you have unconscious incompetence. That's the lowest stage, where you don't know what you need to do and you don't even know that you don't know. Then you reach conscious incompetence. You know what you don't know. Then you reach conscious competence, where you know what you know. But you have to keep practicing it, because it's something that is in your you're competent only while you're conscious.
right.
And the final stage is unconscious competence, where it has become part of you, where it is something that is automatic. You don't need to put an effort, it becomes effortless, and that is where it becomes magical, because things are just happening. Like it's but it's not just happening, it's that you have reached that place where it's happening automatically. But it may look magical to people outside, or even sometimes to yourself, where it's like, oh wow, like I did this. I was never able to do this before automatically, but now it's just happening. So these are like the 4 stages of learning.
It's interesting that, normally when we talk about being automatic in the group, it's in a
negative way.
Yeah. And it's interesting that, you can get to a place where actually it becomes of benefit to you to be automatic.
In certain things you can become automatic. Like, in a way of thinking, for example, like instead of thinking like a victim every time, you automatically start thinking like a hero. And when I say hero, there's a specific definition. It's not a superhero, but it's to be the hero of your own life. It's to be the creator. It's to be the one who is finding the solutions, not depending on a savior or a superhero to come and rescue you. So, but that can become automatic, is that you're automatically not thinking like a victim, you're automatically thinking like a hero. But in terms of, like self-remembering, for that to become permanent is a long journey. Because, like if we come back to Gurdjieff's levels of development, so you have the first 3, which everyone is the same. Then you have level 4, where it's the first time you wake up. And the only thing you do at level 4 is have a permanent desire to wake up. You're still not awake, but you know that you need to wake up, and you permanently or always want to wake up. And there's a spectrum. So you are at the beginning of level 4, where you want to wake up, but you keep forgetting that you want to wake up. And then you're at the end of level 4, where you constantly remember that you want to wake up. You still are not awake, but you remember that I need to wake up, I need to wake up, I need to wake up. That becomes automatic. Then you go to the entrance of level 5, where you're awake for some moments, but you keep forgetting.
Okay.
But you still remember I need to wake up. But then you reach the end of level 5, which is permanent self-remembering. So you are always remembering yourself automatically. You don't go to sleep. This is coming very close to the enlightened state. Then you go to level 6, which I will not discuss, because for most people it's so far off. We can't understand that level from where we are today. You can only understand at most the next level, and maybe just the beginning of the level beyond that. But for most people, being awake doesn't even make any sense, because they don't know what it means to be awake.
Yeah, like I'm trying to imagine right now, and my imagination can't go that far.
It's because the present state of consciousness is so far from that. It's like, you're looking at the horizon. You're looking at the ocean. The ocean is endless, but you can't see it beyond a point. You can only see it till the horizon. But it's not that the ocean ends there.
Yeah.
The ocean keeps going. You are just not able to see it. And you may say it's because of the curvature of the earth, but I'm using a metaphor here. It's like you have a limited range of vision. Even in your imagination, there is a limit to your imagination. And what we are doing is to expand those limits. We want to expand the limits of our imagination. This is what is consciousness development is. When you go to a higher level of imagination, you can imagine more. You have more power to imagine.
Yeah, this is what's weird. I keep finding myself in a space where I'm imagining what it would be like to imagine further, you know? Because I know that I'm not capable of seeing more than I can right now. That I can imagine maybe one day I would be able to imagine it. It's weird.
But this is what I would call faith. Is that, believing that there is more possible.
I do believe that now.
For me, that is what real faith is. It's not believing in a savior or something outside you. Is that I believe I can have a higher level of consciousness. And hope, which pairs with faith, is to do the work to have that. Hope is what is created by applying the effort. Is by doing the work. It's not expecting the reality to be different outside. It's what I make possible through my own effort. If I put effort, I know my consciousness will grow. That gives me hope. And faith is, I know that eventually I will reach some level where I am completely different. So for me, the two pair together, but it's completely internal. Like these are the internalized versions of hope and faith. Compared to the external hope, which is like expecting things to get better outside, or expecting people to be better, or wishful thinking.
It's more like faith in yourself.
Exactly. So faith, the external faith again is, like I will be saved by something outside me.
Yeah. I have faith that I will.
Yes, I have faith in my own power. In my own resources, in my own capability. This is unconditional faith, because it's not dependent on something outside. What is the problem when your hope and your faith depending on something outside? You're completely a slave to external circumstances. So if something bad happens outside, you automatically lose hope or you lose faith. But if your hope only depends on the efforts you apply, you are in control of your hope. If your faith only depends on your possibilities and your resources, it's inextinguishable. It's no longer about what is happening in the world outside you. It's what am I capable of?
It's also like inextinguishable almost, because it can't be snuffed out by circumstance. It's
Absolutely.
Just as long as you are you,
as long as you remember yourself,
effort, then you will.
This becomes the key. So we spoke of, we mentioned the term self-remembering many times. What is self-remembering is remembering who you really are, not who you are in relation to your circumstances, not who you are in relation to other people or certain behaviors or certain habits, but who is the real you. If you can remember that, what we call the chief. This is another term that Gurdjieff talks about, is the inner chief. And what Gurdjieff, who is a mystical teacher from the early 1900s, says is that people don't have a chief. The chief has to be developed. Right? So this is the work of consciousness development, is realizing that the I is completely fragmented. We have many small I's that are doing whatever they want, behaving however they want, reacting all the time. And to develop the chief means to develop someone who becomes constantly present and is in control of the parts. So that's why it's called the chief, is that my parts don't die, you don't kill them, but now my parts are responding to the chief. The chief decides which part will come forward, how it will behave, how it will respond. It's not reacting out of chaos and circumstance. A circumstance takes place, the chief decides, okay, this is how I will respond to it. These are my parts, these are the resources that each part has, so which one should I use now? Do I need to be creative? Do I need to be protective? Do I need to be both at the same time? Do I need a third thing? This can only happen if you have consciousness. That is the chief. But if you are reactive all the time, you're just reacting out of instinct. And what is instinct? Is your previous programming, is how you have managed to survive up until now. And many times our instincts may have been useful in one particular situation, but if you keep reusing that in every situation, it may not be the best solution. It's just that's all you know to do. It's the only thing you know, so you keep doing it. But many times when you keep repeating the same thing, it becomes toxic. Because we need to keep evolving. Even our instincts need to keep evolving, and that will only happen through consciousness. The first time you're being instinctual or responding to a novel situation where you have no idea how to deal with it, you are in consciousness. And through that, the instinct develops. But if you just, the next time, if you just use the instinct without consciousness, over time it will just become toxic because you're not responding to the situation, you're just reacting.
That's the difficulty, is that
Louder,
I
because
believe...
also now there's...
Oh yeah. That's the real difficulty, is that I truly believed that I was always I had a chief from the minute I was born, and I am always in control, and whatever I am responding to, I am choosing to respond in that way, like I'm fully there.
I am I. Like, how can you
Yes.
say I am not I?
It feels like a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Not always, but most of the time, 99% of the time, I feel like I am choosing what I say, think, and do.
So this is, the first exercise in the group that I shared, the foundational exercise, which I call exercise 0. It's not even exercise 1, it's 0, because this is the base of everything. And we keep coming back to this as self-remembering. So just the basic, the lowest level version of self-remembering is how many times a day are you even aware that you are you? And when people start practicing this exercise, what happens?
It's scary. It's absolutely terrifying how infrequently, even now sometimes. Yes, but it's a really good wake-up call to realise how much time has passed in between each. Because you set this task and you think, oh, okay, this will be really difficult. I'll just remember that I'm me, and it is really difficult. So hard.
Yeah, well, I think you think it will be very easy to remember yourself.
Yes, exactly.
But
think it will
when
be
you
the easiest
actually
thing
start
in the
doing
world.
it, it's impossible. It's almost impossible. Like, the way I set it up is to give the easiest possible version of it. Is like, remember yourself 3 times this week. Like,
Yes.
That's all you have to do, is remember yourself. Okay, we do the group on Sunday. Remember yourself tomorrow, remember yourself on Wednesday, and remember yourself on Friday. Monday, of course, you remember yourself because it just happened.
Mm-hmm.
And you're excited, I have a new exercise and I
Mm-hmm.
will do it. And probably Monday you remember yourself 3 times. You're like, wow, like I'm killing it. And then Wednesday comes and maybe you remember once and you're like, it's just so much effort. And by Friday you've even forgotten that the exercise was given to you, or you've completely modified and you've just changed the exercise itself.
It's brutal, but it's very necessary to go through that,
Yeah,
to demonstrate to yourself.
The first part of self-remembering is realizing that you don't remember yourself. Is to realize how automatic you are.
Yeah.
Is to realize how asleep you are.
Yeah.
And how you have forgotten yourself and you're not present in any moment of your life, or in very few moments. And until we come to that realization, right, like, we cannot do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because why? Because if you believe you have consciousness, if you believe I am I, it's obvious. If you believe you remember yourself, you have no need to do the exercise. This is what Gurdjieff explains, is that people who believe they have consciousness cannot do anything to develop their consciousness because they already believe that they have it. So the first step becomes realizing that you don't have consciousness, or that you have very little of it, or you have it very infrequently, only in certain circumstances. But most of the times, what people call consciousness, no, like science or culture says, like to be human is to be conscious. You are a conscious
It's
being.
our birthright.
Yeah,
That's what differentiates us from animals, right?
exactly. So the only thing we do is believe what the culture tells us, is to believe that we are conscious. But what is the actual experience of being conscious for most people is to be asleep.
Yes. Yeah.
So for most people, being asleep and being conscious is synonymous. What we call sleep, right? Like to be asleep for us is to be automatic, to be reactive, to not be present, to not remember who you really are, to just be in your story all the time, to just be reacting to external stimuli. So this person comes and says something and you just react automatically. Your what is expected of me? What can I do to please this other person? Or I am a rebel. So rebels think I have a lot of consciousness, but rebels are as automatic as anyone because they are habituated to just rebelling to everything. It's not that they are every single time choosing to rebel with a lot of consciousness. It's just automatic because they have been programmed to be rebels, which is what I was. Like I used to think, oh, I think for myself and I'm a rebel and I chose that. But when I started watching myself and I started doing this exercise, I was like, holy shit, like most of the times I'm rebelling without a purpose, without a cause, not even wanting to rebel. I'm just doing it, and many times it's detrimental to myself. Like I'm rebelling and it's hurting me. I actually want to do the thing that the other person is saying, but I'm not doing it because they're telling me to do it. So I was like, wow, even to be a rebel is to be asleep. And for most people, that will be shocking. They'll be like, what? No, I'm a rebel. I'm awake. Like
Yeah.
I am fighting the system that is putting me to sleep. But that's the thing, is that people don't understand sleep. They're so deep in the sleep that they don't even understand what it means to be asleep.
This is it. Doing this work makes you feel like you've woken up to the fact that you're an actor on the stage in the middle of a performance and you've got a script that someone has given you, but you didn't know. You thought it was a real life, actual living that was happening. And really, it's just you were born and then scripts just got handed over to you by other people, mostly people who cared about you, and now you are just acting through your life. You're not making conscious choices most of the time. And it's terrifying to discover that, but I think it's also exhilarating to discover that. Like there is a certain amount of freedom just from that knowledge of I've just watched myself instead of, like I've watched myself doing my pattern and realised I'm in a pattern.
But I think what makes it exhilarating is realizing that you can drop the script at any moment. Because otherwise it can feel even worse. Like, holy shit, I'm just a puppet in someone else's hands and I have no power to change this.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people are in this state, is that they realize that they are puppets or that they're robots and they feel powerless because they don't have the tools or the technique to do something different. So that is a very important part of the group work. You know, why we call it study of self. Like I said, it's not just exploration, it's also transformation. Is that now that I have studied myself and I know what I'm doing, now what?
Yes.
What can I do now? And this is what you're talking about, the creative solution. You know, like actually coming up with the creative solution itself is part of waking up. So it's not about being handed a new script by another guru who tells you this is the better way to live life, which is what a lot of self-help is about. You know, like this is what is wrong with you and let me tell you how to live a better life. And a lot of people, they start with this thinking, oh, I finally found a solution. And after some time, what is happening is you still do not learn to think for yourself. You still have someone else thinking for you. And you're back in the same problem. You're living someone else's script, as you said. I love that analogy. Now, the only thing you have is a new script. You've still not become the director of your own movie.
Yeah.
You're still an actor in somebody else's play.
That's it. You just shifted onto a different stage, maybe. It's terrifying as well how long. I mean, I'm still figuring that out, but like how long it takes not want someone to give you all the answers.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's such a strong desire in me still to seek out, like, I just want someone to tell me.
Tell me what to do.
With my, please tell me what to do. So
but
that
this is what we talk about. It sounds unpleasant for a lot of people, but being childish.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of us are still children in adult bodies, waiting for our parents to give us direction, to tell us what to do, to save us, to protect us.
Yeah.
Most of us have not woken up to the fact that we are adults now and we are responsible for ourselves and life. This is real life. It's not a rehearsal. It's not like you said. Coming back to the acting metaphor, it's a live movie taking place. You do not have a rehearsal, and you have to be the director. Or if you're not going to be the director, people will keep handing you scripts because people love controlling other people. Basically, what you're doing is giving your power to someone on a platter, and if you do that, why will someone not take it? Like if you tell me what to do. I personally have broken this pattern of wanting to tell people what to do. Once in a while I may regress, but that is my unconscious. My conscious self doesn't want to tell people what to do. If I do it and I realize, oh shit, again I'm controlling the other person, it's not what I want to do, I will stop immediately. But most people unconsciously will take the platter very happily and be like, let me tell you what to do because I know better than you. Of course I know better than you.
Yeah.
Even if they don't know anything, I know better than you, so let me tell you what to do. Or like there is a guru who has mastered one aspect of life, but then wants to give their opinion about every single thing and tell you how to live every single aspect of your life.
Yeah.
So the fundamental problem is you are not learning how to think for yourself.
Yeah.
You're not learning to be independent or a conscious entity. You're just shifting who you listen to.
It can be scary to realize you are in charge, but no one's going to save you.
This is the reason most people give their powers. What you said just now.
Scary.
It's scary to realize that I have to make a decision, that I have to think for myself.
Yes.
And at the same time, when you're not doing that, you resent the person who is telling you what to do. Even if you don't consciously resent them, underneath you resent them because they're controlling you. Without realizing that you're the one who gave them the power and you're the one still giving them the power by listening to them every single time. While secretly hating them.
Yes.
Like, I want you to control me, but I hate you for controlling me. So, this is the cycle most people are in. And if you realize that even listening to what other people are doing, you are still responsible to pay the price for your action. So, okay, this teacher or this guru told me what to do. I did exactly what they did, but I am still paying the price for my actions because the guru will say, well, it's your life. I am not going to pay the price for you. You are the one who did it.
Yeah, that's...
finally, what will the guru do? The guru is not going to pay the price for you. The teacher is not going to pay the price for you. You may hold them accountable, you may sue them in court, and they may pay a price on the surface. They may pay money or they may be jailed or whatever. But finally, who is paying the price is you. You are the one who is suffering. You are the one still caught in the prison. You are the one whose life is miserable. So, it doesn't matter if the guru pays the price or not. The one who is suffering is you.
Yes. That's the lesson we keep having to learn over and over again, which reminds me of another feature of the group, which is very different, is that we tend to, I don't think I'm alone in this, we tend to get quite frustrated that we reach a certain level of awareness with something and then find ourselves in that exact same situation again a few months down the line and realise that we're like, oh, but I thought I solved that, we went through a big transformation, so why am I back in some way? And the way you've kind of made us realise that it's not, we're always going to keep going deeper in the repetitive
That
spirals.
everything is in layers.
Yes.
And the reason I like to use the terminology of the spiral is that, let's say that the trauma or the belief starts at one core point and it starts spiraling out. So at each loop of the spiral, it becomes, you have another iteration of the same trauma. And usually the first trauma is the strongest because you're completely caught in the unknown. The second trauma, it may look worse, but the effect of it will not be as bad. So as you keep spiraling out, the same thing will keep repeating and you're just used to it after some time. You're just used to this suffering. And at the high, the outer loops of the spiral, you're just like, okay, like fuck, this is just life.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start dealing with it, what I say is that we are rewinding the spiral. So the spiral is first unwinding and becoming bigger, and what we are doing is rewinding the spiral. So you're coming closer and closer to the center. So what starts happening is that you actually start becoming worse, so to speak, because you are going closer and closer to the source. And what will happen is that because the energy is trapped there, you will be enacting your toxic behavior even more.
Mm-hmm.
Or you will be feeling heavier or whatever, but that is a good sign because you're getting closer to the root, and each rewind or each loop of the spiral is actually helping you to develop the resources to deal with the toughest problem. So in the first or in the outermost loop, you're already habituated, so it will be challenging to face it because the first time you're facing it, but it will be the easiest one to face because it's the least impactful.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be like, oh, I did it. And then the next time is a little bit tougher because you are at a higher degree. But each time you're overcoming it, you're developing more power, you're having more trust in yourself, you're learning new techniques, you're becoming more creative. And all of that is necessary to deal with the core trauma. Because you cannot just jump to the core trauma because you may not be equipped enough, you may not have enough power, you may not have enough creativity or resources to deal with that. So in my opinion, the way repetitive trauma is designed is to empower you to reach the core trauma. And once you reach there, then you realize, oh, I can actually be free of this completely. But to get there, yes, you have to go through the layers and layers and layers. Sometimes you may jump layers because you have, you developed enough resources. But generally speaking, yeah, it's a process. It's not, I have this belief that I am not good enough and tomorrow I'm going to do this exercise and 2 hours later I will be good enough forever. You'll be good enough maybe for a few days or a few weeks or maybe a few months, and then you're back in that. So, but you're not back in that. You're moving forward in rewinding the loop. As paradoxical as that is.
Yeah, yeah. But it's very motivating because, when you're in it, it can feel very defeating. You're like, okay, back here again, but it's even like a bit worse now. But yeah, the way you've made us think in those terms is keep going. Like, you've got no choice. You need to keep going. Yeah, because you're getting closer. You are making progress. But your life circumstances, it might feel like the opposite in the moment.
But it's not that you have no choice, as in you have choices. You can always go back to sleep.
You can.
You can always resign and give up and just do what you do always. That choice always exists. In terms of waking up, there is only one choice. You want to wake up.
Yeah.
But it's a choice you make. The other one is not a choice you make. It's just what happens in life. You just keep sleeping. That is the unconscious choice that is being made repetitively. In terms of having the only choice to wake up, is that this is the only choice you will want to make consciously. You will not consciously want to go back to sleep because you realize that the suffering is much worse there. Okay, I have to face this difficult thing and I will be suffering for some time, or it will be unpleasant for some time, but I will wake up.
Yeah.
and the next time it will be better. The next time I'll have more power. After this, I will feel better. But in making the unconscious choice to keep sleeping, you are perpetually suffering. Nothing changes. You may have respite for some time, but it's not that you will not have the same experience again. You will have the same experience, and it keeps repeating, and the spiral just keeps unwinding more and more. So if you choose not to do something, you just have more work later. That is the reality, is that the spiral will not stop unwinding. So if you're not doing something, life keeps building up. Like the trauma keeps building up.
Basically, you have to work either way. You don't get to...
There is no eternal escape. You may be able to escape for some time, years, maybe if few lifetimes, but after enough time has passed and you've suffered enough, you're just like, fuck, I'm tired, I need to do something different.
Like
I want to do
I'm
something.
tired of myself.
That is the best point, is when you're so tired of yourself, you're just like, I have to do something different. Or I want to do something different. That is just exhausting to be you, to be suffering all the time. That is the ultimate turning point. My suggestion always is turn before that, because why be that miserable that you are literally having no other option. You have the option to turn back at any point, but most people don't. Most people reach that point where they have become exhausted of themselves. At least that was for me. I was like so tired of myself that there was no other option. About learning, like you can learn from anything. It's the attitude you have towards it, and if you can bring joy into learning, you learn to a completely different degree, because your energy, your attitude when you are learning something makes a big difference. It makes you more receptive. Like if you're in this serious heavy state, right, you're blocking a lot of things, so you will learn some layers. But if you're joyful, if you're happy, you have more energy to receive, because you will automatically, like if you're in that joyful state, you will be more grateful, you'll be more open, so you're receiving more. But if you're in this, I have to learn, I have to study, I'm here to do something serious, it's like you have this attitude of, your head is down, the blinders are there, and you're not looking at the magic of what is happening. You are only interested in that reward of the lesson you will get from all this suffering. I endured this suffering,
That's
and now
what it is,
now I deserve the reward of learning something.
I will only get the reward if I have gone through the adequate amount of suffering. Like I have to earn it. We don't, so once again, we don't believe.
This is what you're discussing in the group just this weekend, in fact, to detach the reward and to be able to experience the reward just for itself. And you don't need to suffer to have the reward. You can just enjoy it. And whatever is happening is happening. The enjoyment doesn't have to be conditional. The monkey's right behind you. You can hear it. When the reward becomes attached to the suffering, then if you just want the reward, let's say the reward is ice cream, right? So I will do this really boring task, and after that I will eat an ice cream. Then if you keep repeating this, your brain will start associating, if I want to have ice cream, I need to suffer. So the next time that you just want to have ice cream, you will start looking for ways to suffer. So, I need to deserve this ice cream now. Like now the ice cream has a price now. It's not something I can just have. It has to be deserved. It has to be a reward. So, of course, first I need to suffer. So, what do I need to do now? There is nothing to suffer. Let me start creating some suffering in my head. Let me start torturing myself about how bad it is to eat ice cream, or I will gain weight, or something or the other, like some way to suffer so that I can deserve this nice thing. So that basically what we do when we enter into this reward mentality is to make joy conditional. And one of the things we have explored a lot in the groups is becoming unconditional, about how to reach unconditional states of consciousness, whether it's unconditional love or hope or joy or peace or whatever it is, like how to make it unconditional. So how do we make it unconditional is by starting to study what are the conditions and why those conditions exist and how challenging it is to let go of the condition. Like, oh, I realize that I need to suffer to enjoy things. But can I actually stop suffering and just enjoy things? No, not immediately. It's a lot of work to let go of those attachments.
Yeah.
Because they're so deeply ingrained. Like, oh my God, I have to suffer, I have to suffer, I have to suffer. Well, maybe I just suffer 1% less this time and give myself the reward. Next time I suffer 2% less and I get the reward. Like you have to gradually deprogram. It's not something that will happen automatically, because if you do give yourself that ice cream without suffering first, probably the suffering will come later. You will feel guilty about getting the reward.
You'll displace it to be...
Yeah, so it's not... This is what I mean by it. It's not instant to break these programs. It takes time.
Even with suffering, you would think of all the programs to break, that would be the one that, oh, okay, just break your suffering program that you are conditioning yourself with all the time.
But we are addicted to suffering.
Yeah, it should be so much easier than it is, but...
We are completely addicted to our suffering. That is the biggest realization that a lot of people have, is that how addicted they are to their suffering. And why we say that is because even when you want to stop, you can't stop. That is what is addiction. I had said at the beginning we'll come back to addiction. So
good point.
Coming to addiction now, what is addiction is that even when you want to stop, you can't stop. It's not just about will. Will is required, but the problem is that you don't have enough will to stop.
Yeah.
And then you plan to stop and you stop for some time and then you forget yourself, and then you go back into you regress, you relapse, and then depending on your conditioning, you feel guilty about relapsing, you feel ashamed about relapsing, or you crucify yourself for relapsing. And that right there is another opportunity to practice the work, is that I relapsed, I will allow myself to not suffer for this. It's just part of the work. It's part of breaking the addiction is relapsing. And I will not feel guilty for relapsing. I relapse, I will not... It's not that by not crucifying myself means I will keep doing it. But I acknowledge that I relapse and I will make more effort the next time, and I will study why I relapse, what is happening, what justification I made to myself to relapse. So I will make use of this relapse to improve and catch myself the next time, so that the next time is better. So by not adding the guilt, by not adding the shame, you're saving your energy to study what happened and do something different the next time. Because if you just feel guilty and ashamed, you're back in the same cycle. Why are you in addiction? Is because you have pain. What is the pain? Usually it's fear, it's guilt, it's shame. So when you relapse, basically what you're relapsing into is the underlying emotion. That is what needs to be broken. It's not the actual substance that you're addicted to, right? What you're addicted to, or what your addiction is covering, is the underlying emotion. And in these relapses, those underlying emotions come to the surface. That is where we need to do the work, is when we feel guilty, when we feel ashamed of relapsing and suffering or whatever it is. Like suppose you're addicted to smoking. I relapse, okay, I feel how bad it feels to relapse. I feel the pain of disappointing yourself. I made this commitment and I feel bad about not being able to keep it. Feel the pain. Like I did it for 100 days and I did it again. Feel the pain of that. that is what will allow you to the next thing. I'm not saying feel guilty, not feel ashamed, but feel the
Right.
pain of having broken a commitment to yourself. This is what builds the consciousness. So pain is
Okay.
not the same as guilt and shame.
Yeah.
It's the pain of I wanted to do this. It was making me feel good, and what happened that I did this? Why am I suffering? What really happened? So this is what we call study of self, is what really is going on underneath all of this surface level addiction or behavior or whatever it is.
Hmm. Yeah, there's always something else at play that you might not be able to see, but then we come to the group and suddenly so obvious. It becomes very obvious in time
Well,
as you talk
through
through it.
feedback.
Through feedback,
many
yes.
times through feedback. It's not just I come to the group.
No, and then it just, yeah, it's not just turning
sometimes
up.
it is through someone else sharing a story. Sometimes I am directly giving someone feedback or helping them to understand or asking some very specific questions that make you realize, oh, like
Yeah.
this
When
is
I
what-
say obvious as well, like I don't mean it. I use that word because you're like you don't realize how blind you are to your patterns and your specific behaviors. And then, yeah, as you're sharing and getting feedback in different perspectives, suddenly you're like, well, of course it's this. In fact, I've talked about this time and time and time again, and here I am, once more, discussing the same topic, and yet I cannot see that I'm doing that.
And sometimes it's happening live on the call. Like, one of the patterns of behavior we talk about is being a victim. And you see one of the participants live on the call is talking about being a victim, and then being a victim while they're talking about being a victim. Like,
Yeah.
while they're getting feedback, they're feeling attacked, or they're feeling like, oh, like this he is being mean or he's being aggressive. It's like, sure.
Oh, look, now they're coming over here. Oh, really close.
It's like most people are not awake while they're talking.
Hell no.
They think that they're talking, but the one who's talking is just talking automatically, repeating a story that happened. In that moment, there is no consciousness. It's just pressing play, and the
Yes.
thing just comes out automatically. There is no presence in sharing.
Yeah, I'm laughing because, yeah, that I definitely. Most of the time when I am talking, I am not there, like, at all. Just nowhere near the room at all.
Like, one of the things I think I've mentioned several times is, like, I do my best to be listening to myself while I'm talking, because the one who is talking through me is the teacher, but the one who is listening is the student. So
Okay.
I'm like, learning from myself, because many times when I'm working with people, what I'm saying to them, I also need to hear that. Or, like, it's
Right.
something that if is there in them is also there in me. And while I'm talking to them, I'm like, oh, that is genius. Like, it's not like I said it. Something said it, and I'm listening to that being, that entity within me, or that teacher talking, and I'm like, oh, I need to do this myself too. Like,
That's so wild. So, like, can parts teach other parts, or is
yeah.
it? Yeah.
So you can have wiser parts, but I think that is the work. Is like some of the parts that you have worked on become wiser, and while you're teaching, the other parts can also be like, yeah, I also have this. Like, like this part of me also has this behavior. Or this part of me still behaves like this. Like, this other part may have evolved, but the other part still behaves like this. So I still need to work on myself. Or there's still this residual pattern, or this other layer.
Yeah, I don't often think about the fact that we're in this group, and it's not just the people.
Yeah, it's not
present,
just
it's
6,
their
7, 8
part-
people
yeah, it's
on the
all their
Zoom call.
parts.
There's so much happening.
I've never considered that before. That's so interesting.
Mm.
And it's obvious now because the way in which our parts will trigger other parts within someone else.
Yeah.
Good or bad. Like
Yeah.
sometimes they'll wake up from something happening, and it's great that they wake up and then take over because you've got witnesses to your behavior who can.
Yeah, this is what I was saying earlier is that when you're saying it becomes obvious, it can become obvious either through me giving feedback or through someone else talking, and you realize, oh, I do this. I have this in me also, and then it becomes obvious to you. Like even if you had no intention or no idea that you have this, or that you do this, when you hear the other person talking, you realize or remember, oh, my partner told me I do this exact same thing. And in that moment when your partner tells you, like, no, shut up. Like, I don't like, I don't.
What do you
believe
know?
I don't do that. Like that is the usual reaction. Then the other person says, and then you remember what your partner said, and you're like, oh, I do this, but I can see it when the other person does it. I can see it in the other person, but it's very difficult to see it in me.
Yeah.
That is the other power of the group, is that it's so much easier to see the problems in other people. But if you can use that, if you can use the ability to see the problems in the other, and then remember the other is not different from me. If they are doing it, there's a very high chance I'm doing it. Maybe not exactly the same, maybe not in the same situation, but where am I doing this thing?
Oh, absolutely. It's so valuable to go through this together for many, many reasons. But I think at first, again, I was really shy with sharing, because a part of me is like, it's so embarrassing. If I open my mouth every time, it's a risk. I don't know what's going to happen. And it's just so embarrassing to... for me, it's embarrassing.
I think one very good example, if you don't mind me sharing.
Why not? Go for it.
Is about gifting.
Oh yeah.
You remember that discussion? You were so ashamed or thinking it's such a silly topic. Why should I even bring it up?
Yes.
Like you had so much inhibition to talk about that.
Yeah.
And when you spoke about it, every single person in the group was like, fuck, like I have this.
Yes.
Or I have some version of this. Or I have some problem related to gifting, or either receiving gifts or giving gifts, or some aspect of gifting. And suddenly this completely silly topic became the topic of the group for the whole call almost. Like we spent more than an hour or maybe more, I don't remember, but just talking about that. And that is the point, is that there is no judgment.
And it's all valuable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like the silliest thing can have such profound implications, because it's a pattern of behavior.
Yeah.
So it's not about the gifting itself, it's how you are relating to gifting. Is also how you're relating to many other things in your life, but you don't see it. So like one of the things that came out of that discussion is that you had just given up the expectation.
Yeah. It's in permanent
in
disappointment.
You entered in permanent disappointment in relation to receiving gifts. But that is not the only place where you're in permanent disappointment. It's possible that you're in permanent disappointment in many areas of your life, but you just don't see it that way.
Yeah.
You started telling yourself, well, I don't care about gifts. This is what you say to yourself to compensate for the sadness of being disappointed every single time you receive a gift. So you start telling yourself, oh, I don't care about gifts. So suddenly you're like, oh shit, like I'm doing this.
Yeah, this is it. Like, as embarrassing as it sometimes is.
If I don't have expectations, I can't be disappointed. But secretly underneath, you're always expecting and you're always disappointed.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny. I think of it as that's my shield. Is I'm like, well, I won't experience the pain because I'll expect you to disappoint me. So then I won't have actual disappointment. But yeah, it's obviously doesn't work like that ever. And trying to avoid expectations, I build my own expectations.
Yeah. So if you don't do the work of healing yourself, then underneath you will still keep expecting something. But on the surface, consciously you find a coping mechanism like telling yourself, it doesn't matter, I don't care about it. But the coping mechanism is not real healing, it's just coping. Coping is not the same as healing. Coping lets you get through the moment. It lets you consciously surf through the moment, but underneath you're still feeling the pain. Underneath you're still feeling the disappointment, the hurt, or whatever is the feeling that you're repressing with the coping mechanism. So people have different types of coping mechanisms. It can just be a belief that they're telling themselves, or they're using substances or medication or whatever. But there is a big difference between coping and healing. Or let me find some belief or some saying or some quote or some affirmation that I can tell myself to just get through the day.
Yeah.
The whole attitude is, how can I just get through this and collapse at the end of the day and wake up the next day and just repeat.
Yes.
There is no joy, there is no excitement, there is no passion. It's just, how can I cope and survive? This is for a lot of people. I'm not saying for everyone, but for a lot of people, they have just reached that state that the only thing they're looking for is tools to cope and survive. They have
that's your highest aspiration.
Yes.
Is just
can I at least get there? Can I at least cope? Because a lot of people are not even there. They don't even have coping mechanisms, or the coping mechanisms have failed so miserably that they are just like, they've just given up completely. So you have levels and levels. So you have the complete resignation, then you have people trying to cope, then you have people coping. Then you have healing. It exists. Like, a lot of people don't even know that you can heal, because the culture doesn't talk about this. Society doesn't talk about this. For most people, they just believe that because the culture tells them, find a way to deal with your shit and get the job done. We don't care what is going on with you. We just care that you meet our bottom line, which is this result or this expectation. And you be a functional member of society and don't throw a tantrum and don't throw a fit. This is what most people are trying to live up to, is that I don't have to have a breakdown in the middle of a meeting. And that is sad. It's a really sad state of society that this is all people expect us to be, is don't have a breakdown. This has become the expectation of society, is don't have a breakdown.
In front of people. Have a breakdown at home. When
even that is not acceptable for a lot of people, because then that is admitting to yourself that I am weak or I am crazy. So a lot of people don't even give themselves that permission to be able to break down alone.
That's so true.
Even being alone, people have such high expectations of themselves that I have to look some way to myself. It's
like healing is a taboo in
almost
modern
society. It's not a taboo. It's that the option doesn't exist. If we come back to our discussion of the Matrix, like, one of the activities we did in the group was to watch the Matrix series together. Choice. It was about choice. Is that the world gives us these binary choices, and it tells us either you break down or you don't break down. If you break down, we don't accept you. If you don't break down, you can continue to be a member of society. But these are your only two options. What is consciousness is realizing that first, you can make a choice, because most people think that they don't even have the power to make a choice. If I break down, I just break down. I cannot do anything. So first is the realization that you can make a choice, that you are not compelled to just make one choice, that you at least have two choices. And then to realize that if I use my power, if I use my consciousness, I can come up and realize that there are more choices and I can make one of those choices. So in my opinion, for most people, healing is not even a choice available to them. It can't even be taboo, because it's non-existent. Taboo means it exists, but you can't talk about it, like sex, right?
Okay.
Like, if sex is a taboo, sex exists, but you can't talk about it. But for most people, healing doesn't even exist. So there is no question of talking about it or not talking about it.
Such a good point.
It's just because like even you go to a psychologist, many psychologists are just giving you coping mechanisms. They're trying to fit you into the culture. You have to become a functional member of society. That is the aspiration of the psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
Like their patient has to be a functional member of society. That then they will feel successful. I managed to condition or acclimatize them to the societal conditions that exist today. I did my job. So, but that is, even the psychologist doesn't believe that healing is possible in many cases. Like, for them it's just, oh, this is society and you have to fit into it, and to fit into it you need to take these pills and do these coping mechanisms, and that's the end of my responsibility. This is the average psychologist, but good psychologists of course know that healing is possible and they can help you, but most people don't know that you can interview a psychologist, that you can find a good psychologist. They just think, if I go to a therapist, it's enough. They don't, doesn't matter if the therapist is good or bad. They are a therapist, they know better than me, so I will just do whatever they tell me. Again, you don't want to think, is what the therapist saying reasonable? Is it resonating with me? Do I want to do that, or I just have to do it because they are an authority and they said that this is what needs to be done? And if I do this, it will work. And if I don't do this, it's my fault. It's not the therapist's fault, it's my fault.
Mm-hmm.
There's something wrong with me. I cannot live up to the therapist's standards. I am the problem. No, they don't even want to question that maybe my therapist is not good and maybe I can find a better therapist.
Yeah.
Or they don't want to pay for good therapy. It's like, I need to get therapy, but I don't want to pay for it. I will just find the cheapest therapist.
Yes. And then I can say that I've tried.
I tried. It did not work so well. What more do you expect of me? I did therapy, but it doesn't work. Therapy sucks.
Done.
So, they try one therapist and give up. So, whose fault is it really? Where does the responsibility lie?
Mm.
If you are responsible for your healing, you will find the right therapist for you.
Yeah, again, if you know that healing exists, like it
of
really
course,
is
like
an
all
option.
of like the intention of this podcast, like this specific section right now, my intention is to make people realize that all of this is possible, and that options exist once you start looking for them. But you have to have that determination to go the whole way. No, you can't just be like, well, I tried therapy, it did not work, and I gave up. That's not how healing works. Healing means a commitment to heal. You reach the end, like you reach your goal of healing yourself. It's not, I tried to heal myself and it did not work.
And presumably, once you make that commitment to yourself, you will find the people, the right kind of people.
Your energy starts shifting automatically, because then you actually start listening to what people are saying and you start judging them, and you're like, well, this doesn't make sense to me. This is not the right thing for me. So, can you give me another option, or do I need to find someone else? You actually start paying attention instead of just being a robot and taking another script, as you said. No, like either this guru will tell me what to do, or the therapist will tell me what to do, or this wise person who has more authority than me will tell me what is right for me. I'm not saying that there are not wiser people, but you have to cooperate. And the wiser people have to help you to think for yourself. They don't have to tell you what to do. They have to help you to activate your power, your creativity, your resources. This is the style that we work with. Like, what are you doing? I may have solutions for you, but what about you? Like, can you come up with your solution? Okay, you put a lot of effort, you can't come up with your solution. I will give you one solution. Practice this, and through practicing this, come up with another solution. It's, again, you don't give up just because I gave you one exercise to try out. You try the exercise, and using that you go deeper, and you then activate your resources. So it's not a passive approach. It has to be very proactive.
It's very different too. I think what else is really refreshing working with you in the group is that you kind of like, you don't go for the symptoms, you try to go to the root of things when it's appropriate, because sometimes
so what do you
ready.
mean by that? Why don't you explain that?
Well, it's kind of like we were saying, that we can come to you with our surface level interpretation of what we think is going on or happening, and then as we talk to you about it, we quickly understand that there's other forces at work underneath, and that's what we need to focus on, not just
It's not about correcting a behavior.
Yeah.
It's about understanding why that behavior exists in the first place.
Yeah.
Why does this pattern exist? It's not, oh, I feel guilt and I must stop feeling guilty. That is silly. Like, that is, okay, first is already a deeper layer. Like, maybe your behavior is to punish yourself, or let's say your behavior is to self-sabotage. Okay, so that's the most superficial, or like we can say even more superficial is like whatever, you go to a meeting and you don't prepare. So you'll say, my problem is that I don't prepare for meetings. Okay, so that is the most superficial. Then we can ask, why do you not prepare for meetings? Oh, I have a pattern of self-sabotage. So that is one layer deeper. And then you say, so first you will say, I need to prepare for meetings. But if you have self-sabotage, you will not prepare for meetings, no matter how much effort you put. Or you may start preparing for meetings and sabotaging in another way. So basically you substitute how you sabotage, because your end goal is to self-sabotage. Suppose you reach the next layer of consciousness and you say, oh, what I realized through these several surface level actions that my pattern is to self-sabotage. Okay, I must stop self-sabotaging. Again, you can't, because you don't know why you're self-sabotaging. Or say you do stop self-sabotaging and the underlying cause is guilt. Okay, so I stop self-sabotaging, but I start manifesting my guilt in another way. So now we go to the next layer. My problem is guilt. I must stop feeling guilty. Okay, you don't understand why you're feeling guilty, so you keep saying, I must not feel guilt, I must not feel guilt. But let's say, like, then I think here we come to the core layer, which is your trauma. Now, so you say, I am a bad person, or I deserve punishment. We can say that this is like the root of, there was a trauma, and in that trauma my a belief was created in me that I deserve punishment, or I am a bad person. Okay, so let's say your belief is I am a bad person and I deserve punishment. If you only work on the guilt, you may remove the punishment aspect, but you may not remove the idea that you are a bad person. And you may have healed the guilt, but maybe being a bad person has other manifestations, which is like self-hatred or shame or whatever. Like, basically a single belief can have multiple manifestations.
Yeah.
Right? So if you don't go right to the core of it, you will not heal everything. And this is what we mean by healing the core and not the symptom. You really need to understand where, like, trace, no? And this is what a study of self is, tracing what is the real source of this.
I think that's refreshing. It's like you said, the difference between a good therapist is, some therapists do focus on symptoms. Maybe it's beyond their capacity to go further with the patient.
Yeah, they don't know more. They just don't know any better.
Yeah.
Because, well, I am not a psychologist, so my knowledge is theoretical knowledge in the, what they teach in the university is pretty limited. But from what I understand, from what I've learned, is that many psychologists are just in theory. They have not done the work on themselves. And the theory itself is not deep enough. The theory itself is many times focusing on the surface. Or even if it goes deeper, people don't understand what that really means because they've not applied it on themselves. They've just understood it theoretically, but they don't know what are the practical applications of that. So a good or an excellent therapist is someone who has understood experientially by applying the techniques to themselves and seeing what are the obstacles, what are the nuances, like how things really work inside you, not just understanding it intellectually but physically, emotionally, like really, really grasping it.
Yeah. And back to what we were saying yesterday, I think part of why this course works is because you do teach what you've known and experienced for yourself, and that in itself has a certain power, a transformative effect in itself. It goes deep, really, really deep.
Yeah.
And it builds trust, because I think we can sense like what you're saying to us, although sometimes it's hard to hear, not even because of the words you're using, but just it's hard to hear the truth.
Yeah, it's to realize that you realize something painful about yourself. Yeah.
It's really difficult, but we can sense immediately that it is the truth, because we know that you've been there or experienced it. Yeah,
and it's different. Not coming from a place of criticism or judgment.
Yeah, it's absolutely not. Yeah, ever.
So where is it coming from? What do you feel like?
I always feel like when you're challenging me, I immediately want to react, and just be like, no, you're so wrong. Let me sit and explain to you all the reasons why you've got this completely wrong. But I have now learnt that, I feel that there's the intention behind it is always to push me to another level, or to get me to see something about myself, to just listen and let it sink in. The intention comes through always, and that is what keeps me from instantly reacting. Is that I can sense that if I just wait for a second before leaping, more will unravel, more will become clear, and we can progress.
It also, I believe, and I would like to believe that it comes from a place of compassion, that it's the reason for sharing this is to help you to understand what is really going on, so that you can actually do something to change. It's not about criticizing you, it's not about telling you what is wrong with you. It is about telling you what is wrong with you, but not about that is bad. It's not bad that it is wrong with you. This is what you are experiencing, and you decide what you want to do with that. Even if it is about realizing what is wrong with you, and I'm using wrong in a very different way from how people understand it. It's not wrong. It's something that you feel is not in alignment with your real self. That's how I would define wrong. It's not me. It's something I'm playing out. It's somebody else's script that I'm playing out. That is what is wrong. So it's more from explaining that it's not to put you down. It's to lift you up and to make you realize that this is not the real you. Look at yourself and question, is this really me, or did I learn this from somewhere outside?
Question everything, basically.
To question your own thoughts, your own beliefs. A lot of people don't even imagine that this is something you can do or you should do. Most people think, if I'm having a thought, it's true, or it's right, or I should believe everything I think. How can I question my own thoughts? And it's the most basic thing you have to do, is to question your own thoughts. Is it really true? Is my belief that this person is a monster really true? Or is the belief that I am a monster really true? Really question. People may feel insecure about questioning themselves because it's like questioning your sanity. If one of my beliefs is turns out that one of my beliefs is not true, or there is something wrong with my beliefs or my belief system, probably I am crazy, probably I'm insane. So there is an insecurity attached to questioning yourself or questioning your beliefs. But realizing that questioning your beliefs is a very healthy habit, and if it turns out that you have a false belief, you can just change it. It doesn't mean that you're crazy, it just means that somebody taught you something which was not true. You believed someone at some point in your life, probably because you trusted them, probably because you were not questioning or whatever. But what is important is to change the false belief. It's not to feel ashamed for having a false belief or for having a bad belief. What is important is that discover the false belief, do something about it, and move on with your life. There is no point in investing more time in a false belief just because you're afraid of what it means to have a false belief or afraid to question yourself. It's also possible for beliefs to have lived out their purpose. A belief may have worked at some point in your life or for some phase of your life, but it no longer serves a purpose and it has become toxic. This is also a very good reason to keep evaluating and questioning your beliefs periodically, is to check, is this belief still serving me? Is this belief still valuable? Does it still concur with my authentic self? Because we keep changing over time, so also our beliefs need to keep evolving, need to keep updating.
Yeah, can feel like sometimes like such a kid, because it's like you said, it feels like it's so basic to be able to question your own stuff, but no, it's often the last thing I'll do. The last thing I will come to the group and I will chat and talk about what I think is going on, but at some point it becomes quite evident that I'm like, oh, I didn't think to ask or question any of my motives here or whys. I just did the thing and now I'm telling you what I did and what I think about it all. But it's a very powerful tool.
So, I would like to wrap up by saying this was the introduction and kind of covering what we do in the group.
Yeah, it's called the study of self, but like
it's the study of everything.
It's everything. It's life. It's the study of just any situation you can imagine yourself in. These teachings are applicable. Like they can't not be.
Well, study of self also has like a deeper meta meaning, which is like, what is the self? You have to just study what the self even means. Is it my personality? Is it my body? Is it my mind, my heart, my soul, or something even bigger than that? Like, what is the self? So that's why, it's like study of self could be synonymous to study of everything, because you literally have to question everything. You have to allow everything to fall apart, your attachments to all beliefs, to really figure out who are you.
Yeah. Be the director. Be your own director for once. Instead of believing that you already are and wondering why things in your life don't go.
Yeah, just like even when we talk about being the director, doesn't mean that the first idea that comes into your head is your own. Like, oh, I have this problem and I will just go with the first idea that comes into my head. But is that first idea really your own, or is that another script? Like, you may have overcome the first script, but does that mean that the second script is yours? Or is it just another idea given to you by someone else?
Yeah, because the scripts just keep coming.
Exactly.
There's no shortage.
We have so many layers of scripts to really figure out what is really my own idea, what is my own creativity. It takes time to unfold that.
It does. But it's a very interesting journey.
Yeah, I think that is one of my passions and roles is to make this work fun and interesting,
Yeah.
enjoyable, no? Like
It is enjoyable,
it's not like
surprisingly.
because of the way it is conducted, I would say, at least partly, like, you know, I want to have fun with this. It's not that, oh, I am working on myself and it has to be this serious thing and I cannot enjoy it. It has to be enjoyable because often the topics are heavy.
Mhm.
So, you know, if you bring humor and joy and creativity to something heavy, you transform it just by doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
tuning in.
Yeah, thank you, whoever you are, wherever you are.
Yeah.